Good morning. My name is Liliana Hernandez, and today we are going to talk about an event that was very important for the development of our history. For this, we have invited some experts about the topic for the construction of a better understanding. First of all, we will see a few introduction about what is the Cold War. The Cold War is the conflict between the communist nations led by the Soviet Union and the democratic nations led by the United States. It is fought in all places, in neutral states in neighborhood, independent nations in Africa, Asia, and even in other space. The main protagonists were the United States and the former Soviet Union. Historians have so far not reached any agreement on the time in which the Cold War began. It is, however, quite safe to say that since 1947, when President Truman of the United States declared an anti-communist policy.
She is Mariluz Acero. Welcome, Mariluz, to our program. How are you today?
Fine, thanks Liliana, and thanks for the invitation.
Okay, thanks for coming. She is going to talk about the cause of the Cold War. Go ahead, Mariluz.
Okay, there were ideological, economical, and political differences between United States and the Soviet Union before the Second World War. These differences were intensified as a result of their mutual suspicion immediately after the Second World War.
Mariluz, how did the different political systems cause the Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union?
Okay, first of all, the United States and the Soviet Union represented two opposing systems of government. The United States, the government is elected by free elections, but where they can compel parties to voice their political opinions. They also possess the right of assembly, of speech, and of the press. In the Soviet Union, the government is formed by the Communist Party. The people do not have the right to form their own political parties. And also they do not enjoy the rights of assembly, of speech, and of the press.
Okay, Mariluz, what were the economic causes?
The economic. Okay, the problem was that the United States wanted to encourage free trade throughout the world, and the Soviet Union wanted to shield off her own sphere from international commerce. These differences led to much ill feeling between the United States and the Soviet Union.
Do you think that was a power rivalry?
Of course, after the Second War, with the decline of Euro, power was larger share between United States and Soviet Union, as one wanted to dominate the other conflicts were inevitable.
Okay, Mariluz, thank you. Now, please tell us about the specific causes of the Cold War, please.
Okay, there were very specific causes like American fear of communist attack. That means that the Soviet Union wanted to spread its ideological communism worldwide, which also alarmed the Americans who follow democracy. There were another fact that was that Russia's dislike of capitalism also. We can find also that Russia's fear of the America's atomic bomb, because Americans acquired atomic weapons by America caused fear in the Soviets. Also, we can find that America's refusal to share the nuclear secrets. Also, both countries fear an attack from each other.
What about the personal interest?
Okay, that was very important because Truman's dislike of style. That means that the US president had a personal dislike of Soviet leader Joseph style. And we can find too that Russians' actions in the Soviet zone in Germany, the Americans were annoyed by the Soviet Union and the action in the part of Germany it had occupied. Finally, I should say that Russia's expansion west into Eastern Europe was a major factor for United States suspicions, and in the same the Soviets feared that America would use Western Europe as a base to attack it. That were the principal cause of the Cold War.
Okay, Magnus, thank you. This was a very important information about the principal cause for the Cold War. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
He is Johan Goyes. Johan, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Liliana. I'm fine, thank you very much. And you?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for coming. Johan Goyes is the person that is going to talk about some important events during the Cold War. Please, Johan, talk to us about these important events.
Yes, Liliana. First of all, thank you for the invitation. Yes, now I'm going to speak about three important events in the Cold War. The first is about the NARI. NARI is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, who is a political military alliance whose primary are the collective defense of its members and the maintenance of a democracy and peace in the North Atlantic area.
Okay, Johan, how many countries were participants in this war?
Yes, participate around together countries. Some of these are Albania, Belgium, Spain, Italy, UK, USA, Norway, and other more.
Okay, well, what was the specific task for this movement?
Yes, we can identify three important events. First is the collective defense, the crisis management, and cooperative security through partnership. Also, we can identify in this area that it promotes democratic values and is dedicated to the resolution of disputes. Also, the NATO had for mission operations and finally helps combat maritime in the Gulf and identity of the Horn of Africa.
Johan, how about the Korea War?
Yes, about the Korea War, as we know, started on June 25, 1950. It was a war between North Korea and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and South Korea, Republic of Korea. Was where the North Korean invaded South Korea.
Okay.
Also, we can find the war estimate from the attempts of both countries to reunify Korea. Both North and South Korea believed that the countries should be unified under their administration. And its agreements in unification talks became intense and resulted in both countries attacking the other by crossing the third parallel, which was the dividing for the countries.
Okay, thank you very much, Johan. Okay, Johan, what do you think that was the most important event during the Cold War?
During the Cold War, one of the most important events was the Communist Party of Cuba. I'm going to talk something about this important event during the Cold War,
okay,
where the Cuban Communist Party was founded in 1935 by Moscow trained members of the Third International. For 3 decades, it adhered to the Stalinist line, but nevertheless collaborated with the NGO of Fulgencio Batista in the 1940s and early 50s. Its members even being rewarded with posts in government and labor. We are going to mention some important dates during this event. From 1954 to 1959, However, the communists were a target of government supervision. The party was merged with Castro's in 26 of July movement in Revolutionary Directorate to form the Integrated Revolutionary Organizations. Also, the PBC's first Congress was held in Havana, Cuba in 1975, when members approved in a new constitution that established it as the sole legal political entity in the country.
Okay.
Also, this institution is the Politburo, whose is composed by 25 members, are drawn from the 150 member central committee selected by the party Congress. The Politburo sets policy for the party and the state. This is the most recent event during the Cold War.
Okay, Johan, thank you very much. It was a very specific information about this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation, and I wait that this is excellent information by our community.
Okay, thanks for coming. She's Carolina Duran. Carolina, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thanks for coming to our program. Carolina is going to talk about another important events during the Cold War. Carolina, please tell us about other relevant conflicts that took place during the Cold War.
Okay, the first nuclear weapon was thrown over Japan on August 6 in 1945, and it killed tens of thousands of civilians. And while Japan was still trying to understand this devastation, 3 days later, the USA struck again, but this time in Nagasaki. So this attack was ordered by Harry Truman, the US president, and the main message they wanted to transmit was don't mess with us, look what we have. So we have bombs and we are powerful. And there is a doctrine of military strategy called mutual assured destruction, and it means that both opposing sides would effectively result in a complete destruction. So they could not afford a bellic conflict. Russia and the United States instead started to support their allied countries, and that's why it was called the Cold War, this non-bellic conflict.
Carolina, what about Vietnam War?
This war took place from 1964 to 1975. It was a bellic conflict between the North Vietnam, which was supported by China and Russia, and the Viet Cong guerrilla, and South Vietnam supported by the USA. And the main aim was to fight against communism expansion. This war began after the rise of power of Ho Chi Minh and his communist Viet Minh Party in North Vietnam. I must say that this was a non-declared war between USA and Russia.
Okay, thank you. And tell me, which were the consequences?
The consequences were terrible. More than 3 million people dead, including 58,000 Americans, and more than half that were killed were Vietnamese people. It was the longest war in American history and the most unpopular because it was like so terrible. And even today many Americans still ask whether the American effort in Vietnam was a sin, a necessary war, or a noble cause, or if it was an idealistic effort to protect the South Vietnamese from totalitarian government.
Do you think that communism fell?
Of course, by the 1980s it was pretty obvious that communism in USSR was not really working out. Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the USSR in 1985, and he introduced many reforms in an attempt to modernize the economy and make the Communist Party more democratic. But this did not really solve the problem and aggravated it instead. Thus, the nation was plunged into an economic crisis, and food rationing had to be done, so it was very difficult. And this caused a great dissatisfaction among Russian people. The Republican government took steps to the end the power of the Communist Party in Russia, but this was a mess, and communism in Russia finally fell on December 1991.
Okay, Carolina, thank you very much for your introduction. It was very effective information for the people. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Here with us is Eduardo Gomez. Eduardo, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks for coming. Eduardo is the person that is going to talk us about the principal effects in the Cold War. Let's begin, Eduardo. First of all, what were the principal effects in East Asia?
Well, first of all, we have to keep in mind there were many events that were very important in this topic. Talking about East Asia, China fell to communists in 1949. The countries around the Red China hurried to form alliances with the US with each other against the threat. It is often noted that Japan was helped in this respect by the conflict in Korea, which boasted Japanese exports, and of quoted example being early transistor radios for American Army. South Korea was itself directly received large amounts of US aid.
Okay, thank you. What were the principal effects into East Asia?
Well, in Southeast Asia, the Cold War had widely different effects. Vietnam suffered several decades of bloody conflict that caused the lives of millions of Vietnamese people, as the US and yet all tried unsuccessfully to prevent reunification of the country under communist government. This conflict spilled over into Laos and Cambodia, which also both turned communist in the middle of 1970s. In Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge, in attempting to implement an agrarian workers' paradise, killed millions of Cambodians through starvation and genocide, a legacy that means that Cambodia ranks among the worst poorest countries.
Okay, Eduardo, what about in Central and South America? What were the principal effects?
Well, this is a very interesting topic to talk about. In Central America, the struggle against communism and communist insurgents to US interventions, which often result in protracted and bloody civil wars. Maybe we can say that Colombia is a result as intervention of US, and maybe they was one of the causes of the current situation of our country.
Okay, Eduardo. This is where we have come at the end of this deep explanation of the facts more important that originate the Cold War and were present in this process. I want to be grateful with our guests for their interesting participation and this way to make the doors open for any opportunity. Say goodbye to all of you who spoke to you, Liliana Hernandez. Thank you very much for your attention.